What's up, y'all? Hope you're all well and in good spirits. Hope you're enjoying this President's Day. I went to the Bay Area, met with some friends for lunch. That was nice. And then went to Vallejo and saw some other friends, and that was nice. And, I had my kiddo with me, so that was cool. It's been a good day so far. Today I want to make a video about the media. So, Tupac used to say they were full of dirty tricks and they would lie. And when I first saw that materialize, like in real life for me, it was a friend that I had who was shot by law enforcement. I believe it was a federal agency. He had a remote control in his hand, and when he got up off the couch, they blasted him. And he lived, and he filed a lawsuit, and I don't know exactly what he got, but he came up, he was pretty happy, dancing around, celebrating, buying everybody beers, and, he had to work the rest of his life. And so when he got shot and went to the hospital, long before I knew, he would win his lawsuit, what have you, all that, every day there was hella people on the street. And we were like all the same age or my relatives' age who were there. And a whole bunch of us lived around the neighborhood. And there was just a whole bunch of people in the neighborhood. Everyone had pit bulls. Everybody did the same thing. Kicked it and if people had jobs, they were staggered, and there was a lot of people that didn't have jobs, so there was just always just a grip of people at my house, next door, up the street, and it was all the same people. They would just move from house to house, and it was always deep. And, sometimes it was like day-to-day come-ups. At night, there was a Kmart by us. One time, everybody in the neighborhood was buying dog food at like a quarter of the price because, they stored the dog food, plants, everything in the back. And so they would hit the store, just different people within the group. And so this dude got shot, right? And before he got shot, it was well known that, he might come by and be like, hey, what's up, man? Buddy trying to get lit, trying to get a head change. You got anything? And I'll be like, look, man, my mom's getting on me to pick up after the dog. If you do it, I'll buy you a 40 and give you $5. And, I didn't have a lot of money. I lived with my mom, right? Had like a minimum wage job probably. I always had a job, so at least I had a minimum wage job. And so he would pick up after my dog. And I know he would do it for the neighbor too, who was like a baller ass dude, right? And everybody knew everybody. It was a hell of a cool street. It was a cool ass street. And he dressed hella grimy. When I had to go out of town on court business or what have you, because I got in trouble somewhere else, he would take me. I'd give him gas money and then some money for a bruise, or back then, you go to this house and they had this certain marker up. You can go knock on the door and you get a bag like that of Bama weed for $5. And so people smoked Bama weed back then. That's how far back it was, right? And so he got shot, and then the news said that he was one of the biggest kingpins in the whole northern half of the state. And we were like, wait a minute, man. We know this motherfucker for hella years. He's always had a bucket that he's always working on because, there's something wrong with it. And he would change out transmissions, whole parts, fucking clip dogs' ears. He had pigeons. He was a brother. He was hella cool, man. I mean, I love that motherfucker. He was a rider. Whatever you were going to do, hey man, like the biggest fucking craziest shit, he was down. Little petty shit, he was down, and you know, it did come to pass that like he got caught one time for something, and he wrote it and got in trouble, and he was cool as fuck, man. He was hella cool, but he wasn't the biggest kingpin in Northern California. There was nothing like that, you know, like not even close. I trusted him, his wife, his family enough that I could leave my kid there and like be like, hey, I'll be back. I'm gonna ride to the store because I would have my kid with me, and vice versa. And you know, we were at each other's houses, and you know, our spouses knew each other. And although he was a G, man, that fool for being like dressed in scrubs and looking like just like a crackhead, man. He fucking looked like a crackhead. He could make the most beautiful fucking woman you can imagine, man. Like he had game. Like he was fast. He was cool, man. That motherfucker was hella cool. And even after he came by one time, picked me up in a sick ass mob. And then we were driving, and he caught a little pit bull over and threw it in the car. And, goddamn, I thought this motherfucker's still a fool. But that's when I first saw the government lie about somebody. Not the government, the news. And I was like, man, like everybody was tripping. Like, nah, man, this motherfucker be mowing our lawn. He mows his lawn. He picks up after my dog. He picks up after his dog. He takes that person's dog for a walk. He fucking changes their oil. And he's with us all motherfucking day. Like all day he was part of the crew that was running around. So we knew he wasn't this fucking baller, man. I mean, I would see like arguments over it's I ain't trying to put a lot out there, and but over lack of funds. And he was a G, man. He was a G. But he wasn't what the media said he was. And the degree of exaggeration from the biggest, wealthiest kingpin in Northern California to someone who's picking up his neighbor's, you know, after his neighbor's pets for just a little bit of beer money and enough to go get a 5-sack of Bammer weed, that he fucking come back and try to share with everybody. You know what I mean? That's what it was. Come back with a beer, pour some out in a half a glass and give it to you. I mean, that's the kind of homie he was. And so when they said that about him, I was like, damn, that's fucked up. They painted him hella bad, and then, you know, we found out he was okay. And life turned out good for him, right? And so the other big news story I saw, this is recently, was all the Fox News pundits, you know, Hannity, Laura Ingraham, Carlson Tucker, even like Robert Murdoch or Rupert Murdoch, the CEO, all these folks saying in private conversation and text that none of them believed the election was stolen, that none of them believed election fraud had been committed. But yet, when the bell rang, they came out with a smile and sold you that lie. And don't trip. I'll make this unpartisan. And so, all these folks that many on the conservative right look to for the information they need to make a decision isn't what they themselves believe. And so in feeding you that lie, they're robbing you of your opportunity, your right to make a decision based on factual information. And so I think if you were buying into all that, you really need to look at yourself and wonder, you know, am I a sucker? Now, I have a video, in the list of videos that I posted, which asks, is Stephanie Rule shilling for the Speaker of the House? Is it Mark Meadows? And she interviewed Lauren Boebert. And I'd never seen Lauren Boebert speak up until that moment. I've only seen memes and news bites and little news bites and memes. And she seemed like a racist gun nut. And maybe she is. But in this interview with this darling of the left, Stephanie Rule, on MSNBC, Lauren, who I had a bias against because I don't like racist gun nuts. They might want to kill me one day, right? Lauren came off as the logical one. And Stephanie seemed unhinged. And one of the reasons I thought that is because Lauren said, I don't want to elect Mark Meadows, if that's his name, as speaker for reasons A, B, and C. And reasons A, B, and C are the same reasons that Democrats and liberals say he shouldn't be Speaker of the House as well. And she says, and I'm not voting for him using my constitutional right as provided by the founding forefathers. And Stephanie Rule says, yeah, well, they're not here now. And that seems so childish. And in other words, she was saying, who cares about the Constitution? Because that's what Lauren Boebert was referring to and what the founding fathers had provided her. And it got crazier because the next day, I saw these YouTube content creators, and not the Chicano ones, these were white ones that talk about like actual national politics. And if they were liberal, they were all like ignoring what happened and saying, oh, Stephanie crushed right-wing nut Lauren Boebert. And I thought, no, she didn't. It was Stephanie that seemed unhinged, angry, bullying, unempathetic. And Lauren was just logical. And now, again, I had a bias against Lauren when I first watched. I watched to see Lauren get humiliated by Stephanie, and it was the complete opposite. And I wasn't upset by it. It was refreshing. So I've seen it happen both ways. And recently, now going back to the Raza content creators, I've seen some defend Trump and do it with the most illogical arguments, twisting words that can't be interpreted any other way than is the commonly understood way of interpreting of biological people. Not conspiracy theorists, not guys who, stop maturing at a certain time because of whatever, drugs, what have you. Not that limits you from being intelligent, but if you live in a bubble, you only know what's happening in that bubble. And so let me show you guys how to defend Trump. When Trump visited California, after a, tragic wildfire, a lot of people's lives were lost. He said that part of the reason the wildfires happened is because we didn't rake the forest. And the media took off with it, pundits took off with it, YouTube creators took off with it, making fun of him. Like, this fool's hella dumb. You're going to just rake the forest and that's going to reduce the wildfires. Well, the truth is that California has recognized that their previous forest management might have not been the most effective at reducing the intensity of wildfires because they were leaving a lot of fuel for wildfire, um, such that it didn't have breaks that would allow you to isolate patches um, or even slow the fire so that firefighters could get a hold of it. California has recognized that. See, Trump wasn't eloquent or descriptive in what he was calling out, but what he was calling out has been acknowledged by smart people as being true. If you rake the forest, and that's putting it in layperson's terms, obviously, there could be a lot of technology and science and modeling and how much could be pulled out, how much should be left behind to protect native species. There's probably a lot of science that would go into it. But it's understood that that needs to happen so that wildfires aren't as explosive as they've been in recent years. And, in part because of climate change. And in part because the utilities don't maintain their lines. They don't care that, and the lines pop, set a fire. We didn't maintain the forest right. Now we got a forest fire that is exacerbated by years of drought, by climate change. And so that's how you would defend him. You would say, look, everybody laughed at him for this. But what he was saying was the truth, and California has admitted it, and they're actually starting to do that now. But if you're in a bubble and you were only getting the left-wing media, all you heard was, this guy's a nut. He wants us to go out there with rakes and rake the forest. Because you're not going to hear that that's actually what's going to happen, right? And so both sides are trying to get something from you. And they're not always honest in winning you over. They'll tell you what you want to hear. And me personally, I think it's kind to be honest with people, to not tell them what they want to hear. When you tell someone what they want to hear, it's out of self-interest because you want them to do something for you. If you just tell them the truth, you want them to do something for themselves. Have a good one.